Hello everyone, this is Dr. Jagannayaki, Professor in MBA Department, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. So today I would like to discuss about demand analysis. So demand analysis, because every day we used to heard the word demand towards a product, demand towards a service. So it depends upon the value of the product, the services, how the companies they are going to render to their customers, and it is purely based on the profit and loss of the company. So after going through this topic, the learner will be able to understand what actually is demand and why it is so important for a business. So in our daily life, if you see, we always heard the word demand for goods and services. So in the business world, the word demand, it creates some value and profit or loss of a company. It is an economic principle referring to a consumer's desire to purchase goods and services and willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service. So an increase in the price of a good or service tends to decrease the quantity demanded. So likewise, a decrease in the price of a good or service will increase the quantity demanded. So if you see, if a product cost is 5 rupees and then immediately the quantity demanded will go up to 100 units. If the price rise to 25 rupees, the quantity demanded will be less. So this is known as law of demand. So it depends upon the consumer's willingness to buy, the desire to buy, and whether the consumer will have sufficient purchasing capability or not. So based on that, we used to have demand to the products and services. So demand is a concept that consumers and businesses are very familiar with because it makes sense and occurs naturally in the course of practically any day. So we have to see that there is an equilibrium between demand and supply. But in all the cases, it may not happen. For example, shoppers with an eye on products that they want will buy more, the product's prices are low. When something happened to rise the prices, such as the change of season, shoppers buy fewer, perhaps none at all. So over a particular period of time, different products will have different types of demands. So during summer, we prefer more demand for ACs, air coolers kind of thing. The same if you go with rainy season, raincoats, umbrellas. During the winter, we prefer room heaters, sweaters kind of thing. So it depends on the consumer taste and preferences. The ability and desire to purchase a good or service of the general public. Then what is the meaning of demand means? Demand for a commodity, it refers to the quantity of the commodity with an individual, consumer or a household willing to purchase per unit of time at a particular price. So demand for a commodity, it implies desire of the consumer to buy the product, willingness to buy the product, and sufficient purchasing power in his possession to buy the product. So if all three will be there, then only we'll say the demand towards a particular commodity. So demand means effective desire or wants for a commodity which is backed up the ability and willingness to pay for it. So the equation what we are going to consider for demand in simple terms, demand is equal to desire plus ability to pay plus willingness to spend. If you have desire alone, it may not be sufficient to acquire a product. But apart from desire, we need to have sufficient purchasing power. And even though you will have purchasing power, it doesn't mean that you are willing to spend on various goods and services. So all together is known as demand. So it is a relative concept, not absolute. Why it is relative means it may vary from person to person, right? So it is related to price, time and place. Based on that, the demand may create. So the demand for a commodity, it refers to the amount of it which will be bought per unit of time at a particular price in a particular market. For example, if you take the prices of gold in different markets, we used to have different types of prices, even though quality is the same. But the variation we can see in terms of time, in terms of price, in terms of place. Then understanding demand. So businesses can spend a considerable amount of money to determine the amount of demand the public has their products and services. So how can we decide how many goods of the company they will actually be able to sell at a given price? So you sometimes if you are unable to estimate correctly, as a result you will get decrease in sales, and from willingness of buyers if demand is underestimated, or losses from leftover inventory if demand is overestimated. So we can able to estimate exactly based on the demand only we need to supply the goods and services. So both are harm to the organization. So demand help fuel profits and the economy. That's why it's an important concept. Demand closely related to the concept of supply. So while consumers they try to pay the lowest prices, they can for goods and services suppliers can try to maximize profits. So if suppliers charge too much per product, the quantity demanded drops and suppliers may not sell enough product to earn sufficient profits. So if suppliers charge too little, the quantity demanded increases, but lower prices may not cover suppliers' cost or allow for profits. So there are so many factors that affect demand, such as appeal of a good or service, the availability of competing goods. So we are talking about the substitute goods and the availability of financing and the perceived availability of a good and service. So all these factors we used to consider in demand analysis. So how the scarcity and efficiency, these two are interrelated things. They are like twin themes of economics. So demand types, there are different types of demand: individual demand, derived demand, short-term demand, complementary demand, producers goods demands, and other one is, and so many types of demands. So coming to the types, especially when you are talking about in economic point of view, demand it stands for consumers ability and desire to purchase a good or service. So just we have to decide the value of the demand. It depends upon the purchasing power of a consumer. So it is the principal force that drives the economic growth of a nation. So without this, other economic activities will become irrelevant. So coming to the types of demand. So demand can be classified based on several factors like nature of a product, usage of product, number of consumers and number of suppliers, etc. So therefore, the need for products will vary depending upon the situation. So the first one, let us start with individual demand and market demand. So individual demand refers to the need for a product by a single consumer. So it can be recorded as the quantity of a product required by a consumer at a particular price point within a specified period. So that is known as individual demand. So it is subject to the price of a product, income of the individuals and their preferences. Whereas the cumulative demand of a product by every individual at a fixed price and at a fixed time is considered as market demand. So in other words, it is the aggregate of individual needs for a specific product at a set price when other factors remains constant. So our focus will be only on the price. So how much price on a particular time in a particular location, and how many units sold in that particular market. So that is known as market demand. Then second type of demand is known as organization and industry demand. So the need for a product produced by a specific organization at a set price and a time period that is specified, and that type of demand is known as organization. So that is related to an organization. So for example, like if you take the one for Maruti Suzuki, they can classify it as organizational demand because we are talking about a particular organization, how many cars they can able to provide to their customers at what price in a specific location. And on other hand, the total demand for products from every organization of a particular industry is regarded as industry demand. So coming to industry demand, the aggregate demand of passenger cars. So again we can differentiate how many passenger cars and how many cars exclusively for an individual usage. So like that we can categorize into different categories. So the aggregate demands of passenger cars from manufacturers like Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, Tata Motors, Mahindra and Mahindra and so on. All the companies demand, cumulative demand is considered as industry demand. Then third one is income demand. It refers to the eagerness of an individual to purchase a definite quantity at a particular level of income. So it depends purely on their purchasing ability. So how much quantity he may acquire at a particular level of income based on their income levels they use to make the purchase. So that type of demand is known as income demand. The next one is autonomous and derived demand. So autonomous demand is that it refers to the categorizing demand based on the dependency on other products. If the demand for commodity is not dependable on others, then it is known as a direct or autonomous demand. But it mainly arises due to a person's natural need for consuming that product. For example, the demand for automobiles, it depends upon the demand for other factors, complementary goods like fuel prices also. It may influence the consumer purchasing behavior. For example, the demand for agricultural product rises to fulfill the requirement of hunger. On the other hand, the derived demand is refers to the requirement of a product that increases when the need for associated products also rise. So just now I told the example of automobile, and the demand for automobile it depends upon the need for petrol and diesel and vice versa. So the need for petrol and diesel depends upon the demand for cars. The next demand is price demand. So price demand talks about the quantity of a good or service an individual can purchase at a given price point, and demand for perishable and durable goods. So perishable goods are those goods which can be used only one single time, like coal, petrol, food products, etc. So once if you utilize them, they may not be generated. So contrary, durable goods are those that can be used repeatedly, and like clothes we can use number of times, shoes, machinery, cars, etc. So durable goods can satisfy any present and future demand, unlike perishable goods. The next type of demand is cross demand. So cross demand refers to the need for products which is not based on their price but instead on the price of other similar products. For example, if you compare tea and coffee, if the price of coffee increases, then people will shift from coffee to tea. So there will be more demand for tea will increase as individuals will switch to a cheaper alternative. So that type of demand is known as cross demand. Then next type of demand is known as seasonal and long-term demand. So seasonal demand, it refers to the demand for products based on time. It depends on the seasonal needs of the people. So the demand for products that are used for a short and specific time, like umbrellas or raincoats, these products are used mainly in the monsoon season. Therefore, they are primarily sold before or during the monsoon. The next type of demand is known as long-term demand. So long-term demand classifies demand for products over a more extended period. Typically, durable goods are regarded here but depends on some other factors such as the change of technology, availability of substitutes, all those things, it influence long-term demand. And organizations consider these factors before designing a new product. Then coming to the determinants of demand. So what are the factors that influence demand of a product or service? So basically, we'll divide these determinants into two ways: price factors, non-price factors. So price factors exclusively they're related to the price, and non-price factors like national income levels, expectations of the people, income levels, the government policies, population size, population composition, and the taste and preferences of consumers, and price of related commodities. So all these together is known as demand determinants. So let us start with price of the commodity. So price is the most important determinant of demand. So a demand curve plots the combination of prices and quantity demanded. So the demand curve will be like this. It will always go like this. Price and quantity demanded. If price increases, quantity decrease, and if price decreases, quantity increase. So this concept we used to follow. So a shift in the price causes a shift along the demand curve. A change in price causes a shift along the demand curve. So a shift along the demand curve is referred to as shift in the quantity demanded. So the simple concept, if price increases, then demand decreases. And if price decreases, demand increases. So these two are inversely proportional to each other. So a shift in the entire demand curve is referred to as shift in demand. So that is the reason as soon as we can find changes in terms of prices, so it is going to influence the quantity demanded. Then coming to the price of related commodities. So changes in the prices of other goods can increase or decrease demand. A good that causes an increase in the demand for another good when its price increases is called a substitute good. So example, already we have discussed about coffee and tea. If the price of coffee increases, then people they used to shift from coffee to tea because it is a substitute to coffee. So a good that uses a decrease in the demand for another good when its price increases is called complementary good. So for coffee, what is the complementary good? Tea is the complementary good. Then next, weather or seasons. So demand for certain products are determined by climatic or weather conditions. For example, in summer, there is a greater demand for cold drinks, fans, coolers, ACs, etc. Similarly, the demand for umbrellas and raincoat are seasonal. So based on the seasons also, there may be demand for the products and services. Then comes taste and preferences. When there is a change in the taste of consumer in favor of a commodity, say due to fashion, its demand will rise with no change in its price, in the prices of other commodities, and in taste of the consumer. So on the other hand, change in taste against a commodity leads to fall in its demand. Other factors affecting demand remaining unchanged. The next determinant is population and composition. The growth of population is an important and vital factor in demand analysis. A high growth of population over a period of time, it tends to imply a rising demand for essential goods and services in general. So it depends on the size of the market. While the size of the market demand for a particular product, obviously it depends upon the number of buyers in the market. So how many buyers are there? Based on that, we can decide the demand for a product. A large number of buyers will constitute a large demand and vice versa. Then comes population size. Age structure of population determines the market demand for many products in a relative sense. If the population pyramid of a country is broad based with a larger proportion of juvenile population, then the market demand for toys, schools, etc., goods and services are required by children will be much higher than the market demand for goods needed by the elderly people. So the age also it influences the purchasing decisions of a consumer. Similarly, the sex ratio has its impact on demand for many goods. And adverse sex ratio, that is females exceeding males in number, would mean greater demand for goods required by the female population than by the male population and vice versa. Then comes government policy and tax rates. A progressively high tax rate would generally mean a low demand for goods in general, and low tax rates generally mean by high demand for goods and services, while a highly taxed commodity will have a relatively lower demand than the untaxed commodity if that happens to be a remote substitute. Then we'll discuss about the income levels of the households. If there is a change in income and if there is equal distribution of income and wealth, the market demand for many products of common consumption tends to be greater than in case of unequal distribution. So, but most of the cases will go with unequal distribution rather than equal distribution. So the income levels may always differ from person to person, household to household. So based on that, their purchasing ability also. Then comes expectations. As a result, it may also leads to new introductions in the market, or they will come out with innovative goods and services. So introduction of new goods or substitute as a result of inventions and innovations in a dynamic modern economy tends to adversely affect the demand for existing products. So as a result of these new innovations definitely become obsolete. For example, the advent of electrical or electronic calculations has made adding machines obsolete. So because of the digitalization, now people they are going with technology, highly technological thing, artificial intelligence, all these things they came into existence. As a result, there are certain things which can perform by manpower, they became obsolete. Then comes national income levels. So national income is an important determinant of market demand. Higher the national income, higher will be the demand for normal goods and services. If the income in a country is unevenly distributed, the demand for consumer goods will be less. If the income is evenly distributed, there is high demand for consumer goods. Then comes commodity common habits. So the market demand for a product greatly affected by the scale of preferences by the buyers in general. So what are the most common habits of the consumers? So that we have to find out. For example, if you see when a large section of population shifts its preference from vegetarian foods to non-vegetarian foods, the demand for the former will tend to decrease and that for the later will increase. So we used to consider the common habits of the population towards a specific good and service. Then advertisement and sales is another determinant of demand. So market demands for many products in the present day are influenced by the seller's efforts through advertisements and sales propaganda. So how much promotional activities you are going to promote in the market, you are going to influence the people through your advertisements and other mode of sales. So based on that, it will create demand towards your product because of the awareness what you are going to create in the minds of the consumers. So demand is created through selling efforts. There is always a limit. So when these factors change, the general dominated pattern will be affected, causing a change in the market demand as a whole. Then next comes demand function. So demand function is a mathematical expression of the relationship between quantity demanded of the commodity and its determinants is known as demand function. When this relationship relates to the demand by an individual consumer, then it is said to be individual demand function, while if it relates to the market, then it is said to be market demand function. So this is the demand function. QDX is equal to function of Px, y, P1 and so on up to Pn minus 1, T, A, Ey, Epu. What is QDX stands for? It is the quantity demanded of the product X and Px refers to the price of the product X, Y refers to the level of household income and P1 to Pn minus 1 refers to the price of all other related products in economy. So here we are talking about the prices of the related products including substitute goods and complementary goods together. Whereas T refers the taste of the consumer, A refers to the advertising, EY refers to the consumer's expected future income. So few things are like that. We used to make postpones because of our low level of income. So in the future, if there is a chance to rise in your income level, then we used to postpone the present product for future period, right? So that is the consumer's expected future income. Then EP, it stands for consumers expectations about future price. So today the prices of gold, for example, you take the price may high, but there may be a chance in the future there may be a decline in the prices. So then the consumer will also decide, he will wait for that decrease in the prices in the future, and whenever there is a decrease in the price, immediately they are going to buy the product. So that's how they used to make their purchasing decisions. And U refers to all those determinants which are not covered in the list of determinants given above. So this is about individual demand function. Then coming to the market demand function, it seems to be similar except few things. All are the same as in the individual demand function. While here P refers to the population which denotes the size of the market. And D refers distribution of consumers in various categories depending upon income, age, sex, etc. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.